Thank you so much for sticking with us for this final segment of Broncos Beat. Like I mentioned just before the break, Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Around this time last year, we were all talking about how excited we were to see what that pass rushing duo could accomplish in 2019. Sadly, we only got to see it for about 4 weeks until Bradley Chubb tore his ACL. But this year, I have no doubt that we are going to see one of the best pass rushing duos in the league. But given the talent that the Broncos have at that position, is it safe to say that an edge rusher isn't what the Broncos need in the draft?
I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, they had a pretty good edge rush combination when they drafted Shane Ray in the first round. I don't think you could have too many edge rushers. As James was mentioning, the positions that you go out and you go get in the NFL: quarterback, pass rusher, pass protector, and pass defender. And pass rusher's right up there. So if the right guy happened to be there and they fell in love with him, I would say that they needed to make that move. Can't have too many.
Who would be that guy?
Well, first off, I think you got to remember that when the Broncos were at their best, they were deep at that position. I mean, that was DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, Shane Ray, Shaq Barrett, and you were able to rotate players. I think the part you need to remember is the number of snaps that you're going to have Bradley Chubb and Von Miller playing. Von Miller played about 79 snaps, I think it was, percent of the snaps last year. Bradley Chubb, is he going to have to play 90% of the snaps in this coming year? I think if you can go out and get a guy that can maybe be 15 to 20% of your snaps to rotate in and give these guys a breather, they're both going to be better, and they're going to be more impactful if they don't have to stay on the field as much. So I do think depth at that position is a tremendous need for every team. I think this isn't something you go and get unless the right guy falls to you near the top of the draft. But I think you need to go out there and make this group a little bit deeper to even have guys to give these guys a breather so Von Miller and Bradley Chubb can be even better than they would be if they were playing the majority of these snaps, almost all of them, like they might hopefully not have to.
Well, and just think about what James said there. Shane Ray and Shaq Barrett were coming off the bench, right? Mm-hmm. Like, just that rotation was amazing for this team. So you have to be open, you have to be fluid, and you have to find more pass rushers in this draft. For me personally, I've got two players that are mid to late round picks that are just like Shaq Barrett and Shane Ray. The Shane Ray prospect is Trevon Hill from Miami, probably a 7th round pick, maybe a priority free agent, which will be different this year. Actually, maybe even more complex because of the pandemic we're dealing with and you know, kind of that phone tag that you play with PFAs after the draft. And then I look at Alex Highsmith from Charlotte. Hey. This guy is amazing. Saw him down at the Shrine Bowl. He has this weird spin chop move. It's like a martial arts move.
I think I just did it.
You are doing it, right? Like, you do it in the open of the show too. But like, Alex Highsmith is a guy that is taught to do that. Proved down at the Shrine Bowl he can hang, and with some of the better seniors there coming from Charlotte, that was always a concern. And he's probably a mid-round pick that reminds me of Shaq Barrett because he's got that length, he's got that hustle, he's got that dog in him, and this weird move. Like, people just have to see it. It's the weirdest pass rush move ever, but it works. And this guy can get after the quarterback. The Broncos need as many of those type of guys as they can get.
You have to remember, too, guys, that remember the year they went and picked Bradley Roby in the first round. You already had Chris Harris. You already had Aqib Talib. And everyone goes, why are you going out? And then they end up developing what? The no-fly zone, a group that goes and makes a name for themselves that nobody's going to really forget for many years to come. It doesn't hurt to get good football players. You'll find a way to have them play, and you'll find a way to have them go out and do it. And I think that example just shows you, and along with the pass rushers we talked about, they've done it before. It's not a surprise if they do it again because now we've seen it's been their thinking in years past.
It's funny because you mentioned Will Parks earlier in the show, and I just don't think we can kind of glaze over that. I think that we need to talk a little bit more about Will Parks and the void that he leaves in the secondary, given the fact that if you just put an S by his name, it's kind of a disservice to the guy. He was such a Swiss Army knife in the secondary. So how do the Broncos replace Will Parks?
You got to find a versatile defensive back who can hit and can move around. I think a guy like Terrell Burgess out of Utah, a guy who can play safety, play the slot corner, play that dime backer role that that Will used to play. If you got somebody who's willing to hit, has got the size and speed to cover and the eagerness to go out there and move around all over the place and be a chess piece and not take that as an insult, then I think you find your guy.
Well, I think if you put it for a Swiss Army knife, maybe that would.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
For our man Will Parks, for Philly Will, who, that's difficult to replace a guy like that. But there's so many versatile players come out in this draft. I don't want to bog everyone down with the minutia of late round guys, but how about a local guy in De'Veon Taylor, who is linebacker, safety, slot corner? I'm not exactly sure. So maybe a team can figure that out. Maybe the Broncos could pick him up late. Of course, from CU, was at that pro day, put on a hell of a show.
I think for everybody watching, I think it should be pointed out why people like Will Parks are so important to teams, right? Offenses become more and more versatile, interchanging pieces like tight ends that are in this division that can go line up anywhere. Well, what do you need to do? You need defensively to have guys that before the snap, you don't know exactly what they're playing, and you can fool a quarterback in that sense. Players like Will Parks are the reason why he had the market for a while that he had, because you can do things like that to counter offenses. And those offenses do exist in this division, so that's why those players are at a premium. And
we brought it up on this show before. It's about declaration. When the quarterback goes to the line, he says 52's the mic. I mean, that's for a reason. That's for blocking schemes. That's for coverage. That's for routes that are to be run. When you have a player like Will Parks, we talked about Isaiah Simmons earlier, when you have those guys like, I don't know what he's playing this snap.
Yep.
That confuses an offense, and you're up against some really great offenses, of course, with the Chiefs in this division.